Welcome to Ray's Rods, and that's right, you guessed it, we build hot rods. If you were thinking of something else, I can't help you there. We're here at Triple R Garage where we like to spend our money on stuff that really doesn't make any sense, but we enjoy doing it. Today, I am actually planning to start our first episode on our 1950 Chevy 3100, which, as you see behind me, came back from blast. And due to that, we are actually in the trouble of tripping over parts and being completely unorganized, but we are going to do the best we can. Today, I'm going to begin with the unveiling of our new transmission from Mad Dog Performance. Mad Dog sends these transmissions out, as you see, beautifully painted, beautiful work. Comes with a fully triple disc billet converter, anti-ballooning for the twin turbo motor that is going in the 1950 3100. This is a drag week truck that we're building for next year's drag week, and this transmission has a whole bunch of features: trans brake, billet shafts, input, output, upgraded pump, you name it. But I'm going to leave that to the professionals. Today, we are going to figure out how to add it to this frame here that, as you see, is still a work in progress. But in the meantime, we're going to cut this cross member out, or unbolt it for now, and decide how we're going to build a new cross member once we get this transmission ready to go. But in the meantime, as you see, the torque converter has 6 bolts, not 3 bolts as many converters do commonly have. And I do not want to put a 6-bolt converter on, as you see here, a 3-bolt SFI flex plate. So I'm going to be pulling off the SFI flex plate from my LSA in the CTSV, as I have a new one ordered. And we're going to put it on here with good grade 8 ARP bolts that are brand new. And I will show you how that's done. So stay tuned. And welcome back. I want to begin by saying that in hot rodding, car building, engine building, whatever, you're going to run into issues. That's just part of the game, and if you don't do your research or pay attention to your project, you tend to run into those issues more frequently. And when you're like me and have more projects than you know what to do with, you can't remember everything off the top of your head. Well, let me get started by showing you exactly what I'm talking about. As I had indicated before, the goal was to remove my SFI flex plate from the CTSV, as it has a 6-bolt converter bolt pattern from Circle D Specialist. The problem now comes to right here. Here is the SFI flex plate with the stock grade bolts that is in the current twin turbo LS motor that was built for mock-up. As you see here, there are 6 crankshaft bolts for the flex plate. On the LSA, there are 8 crankshaft bolts. As you see, this will not bolt up, nor will it ever work. But the reason I did this, I forgot about a project I did most recently where I rebuilt a 6.0 engine, similar to this one right here, that I went ahead and threw a 408 stroker kit in, which had an aftermarket Lunati crank. And that Lunati crank had an 8-bolt provision for the crankshaft. So, not realizing that this motor does not have the Lunati crank, and this has an Eagle crank, which has a 6-bolt crankshaft bolt pattern. So, with this in mind, I do realize now that I need to go ahead and order a 6-bolt SFI flex plate. Many people might think, hey, this is perfectly fine, just throw some grade 8 bolts here and call it good, but I personally would prefer to have 6 bolts holding my converter to my flex plate, as I will be pushing some serious horsepower out of this motor, or the future motor that I'm building. And I personally do not want to chop off a leg or break a converter or do anything stupid that is unnecessary when all I had to do was buy a $200 plate. And many people might be asking, why don't you go ahead and mark up the plate with your converter and drill the holes? No, I will not be doing that. Why? I do not do things half-assed. If you drill into this SFI plate, not only is it not a good plate any longer, nor is it certified in any way, shape, or form for any sanctioned body, it's not safe. And as many people can see here, if you're new to the hot rodding world or building world or whatever you're watching this for, this is a saw blade. And if these stock bolts or this weld here were to break, this becomes a saw blade and it shoots straight through your floor and through your legs. And yes, I have seen shields and SFI protection actually break and fail. No, I have not seen someone lose their legs, but I prefer not to. So I would prefer to keep my legs. Therefore, I will not be drilling into this flex blade. All right, now that we established we have a flex blade problem, we're still going to continue working. We have plenty to do. The Crossmember is in the way for the transmission. We need to build a new Crossmember for the transmission, which we will be doing some cutting, some welding, some plasma cutting, and measuring, and you name it. But in the meantime, since we need to order a new flex plate, I think we're going to go ahead and mock it up anyway. So I'm going to cut the transmission off of the pallet, slide it underneath this frame, and we're going to figure out how to get this going. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So, really quick, if you have not seen this before, a torque converter is a critical function of an automatic transmission. It's essentially the clutch for the automatic transmission. Here, you see the bell housing is flush. And you can barely see that shaft that goes into the back of the crank, barely sticking past that. that is pretty normal. And the reason I show you this is the engagement of the torque converter must be completely engaged. Otherwise, you will destroy your transmission, your torque converter, who knows? It could even destroy part of the thrust in the motor. So the key is always ensure you push the converter in, turn it, push it again, turn it, and push it again. You want 3 clicks. Some people say 2 is good enough, but there are 3 total clicks of engagement. And if you don't know what that means, I will show you a Circle D converter right here in my messy garage that I have. Here is a Circle D converter, which, as you see, has these little prongs here. These engage the pump inside the transmission and spin the pump. It has to engage inside there, otherwise, if the pump is actually in this section here, this is pushing against the pump from the pressure of the rear of the crankshaft and the flex plate. No good. That means no engagement and lots of damage. So always ensure 3 clicks so that this is engaged inside the pump. Let's cover that up, keep debris out. In the meantime, as you see here, we unbolted that cross member that was originally there. This is an S10 frame, by the way, that has been highly modified and has a lot more work to go. We actually installed a back half kit on it, cross braced it, and we're going to be doing some more bracing. We're going to be filling in all these holes with some welds, plug welding essentially, cutting off these mounts, making our own, and the front suspension will be completely changed out with some tubular control arms, which here's some that I had laying around. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them or if I'm going to make my own, but that is to be determined. That is way down the road. For now, the goal is we're going to slide this in, and as you see, I left it on the pallet, lifted the frame. I'm a little winded from it. I'm going to slide it on in, and if you hear that click, by the way, that's the heater. This is going to slide in, and I'm going to bolt it up, and then we're going to get a jack underneath it with a proper protective piece of equipment, as we don't want to damage the transmission pan or the solenoid for the trans brake or anything. So let's get started on that, and stay tuned.
Can we go? Faster. Oh, no, sirree. Is he up?
Now, if you're wondering what I'm doing, let me show you. I'm not doing this the easiest way. I have 2 lifts and I'm using a pallet, a jack, and some air, but you know, you make do with what you have. So let's see. The transmission has, let's see, I think on these they have 7 total bolts, but 1 is a dead bolt in the back of the block right here. So 6 bolts. But as you see, there are pins right here on the back of the motor that are actually removable, but they slide into the large hole here on the ear. See right there, you got the bolt here, bolt down here, and you have this hole here. I am lining it up so that I can slide this in for engagement lift up the back a little to get the angle correctly, and then I'll start a couple bolts. Once I have a couple bolts started, we'll get that thing pulled up, tightened up, and go from there. But in the meantime, that is what I'm lining up, if you were curious. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So as you see here, transmission is now bolted to the engine for the most part. We have it in the position that we want, so we can start measuring for the crossmember. Right here, you can see that the previous crossmember location, this one, it's nowhere close. Not to mention, this is a pretty beefy crossmember, but I don't know. I'd like to reuse what I can, but I don't think I'm going to, because I'm not sure this is going to be quite what I want. Not to mention, it's not the same pattern as this transmission. So we're going to do some measurements, and then I'm probably going to just make this out of round tubing. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, welcome back everybody. Been about 15 minutes of just contemplating and getting irritated and just deciding, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do for this crossmember of this transmission? And I had mentioned I'm not going to use the original crossmember that came with this frame, but I changed my mind. And let me show you why. Let me show you. As you see here, transmission and motor are all lined up. We got the motor mounts good, which I will be making some plates on the front and the back, but here nor there. The transmission will be exactly where it's at, aside from maybe some up and down movement that I will be measuring for the pinion angle and so forth. But in the meantime, as you see where the frame is plated versus where the frame goes in, you can see it from this angle a little better. Plated, and I have a problem where the back of the transmission is where it curves. I don't want that. I would prefer to bolt it here where it's plated and here where it's plated. So in the meantime, what I'm planning on doing is I'm looking at it, and I was thinking about cutting some roll bar and bending it and making a funny little angle and, you know, just making things work. And then I realized I had an epiphany. That crossmember just might work, because it goes in, in and out. And if you have it, why not use it? And let me show you how nice this fits. Let me carry this over here. It's very hard to record at the same time as, you know, carrying a Crossmember here, but be patient with me. With that flat plate there, it is almost perfect to weld a tab for the back of the tranny. But as you see, I don't want that on top of the frame, so what am I going to do? I'm going to set it right here because this looks like a perfectly good table. I'm going to plasma cut this off, and I measured between the two plated areas up there, and that's 34 1/4. So I'm going to measure 34 1/4 from this flat portion to here, and I'm going to cut it off. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a plate, plasma cut a plate that is about the same size as this, and I'm going to weld it onto here and drill the holes to put it into the frame. Is it the most beautiful thing? I don't really care. It's going to be strong, it's going to be perfect, and then I can cut out a plate here after I cut this off. I make a mount that goes in the back of that, and it's going to be perfect because then I can go ahead and in the future modify a drive shaft loop off the back of this, as well as one right here. And if you're wondering, you see all the old metal that is exposed here and there from the original frame. When I'm done mocking this all up, it is going to sandblast just like the body was, and then I'm going to completely redo it. But you do a lot of mock-up long before you do that, because might as well, you already have it. I was waiting for the body, so let's get other stuff done. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this up with the plasma cutter and get to cutting. It's my favorite tool in the shop, so I might as well have fun with it. Welcome back. Excuse me while I drink my watermelon liqueur. It's not the most manly drink, but I like them. I did actually do a little bit of work off camera just to find out that my plasma cutter was not cutting properly, and I can show you exactly why. A little frustrating. The tip on the plasma cutter melted almost immediately, but let me show you what I'm talking about here. So, plasma cutters have a tip much like a welder, if you've ever seen a MIG welder. This is what mine currently looks like. That is that's bad, and I'm not proud of that. So I went ahead and grabbed the replacement tip and cup right here, because what I was seeing is it was not cutting very well. In fact, it was looking very, very choppy and crappy, and I did not like it. But I did go ahead and mark where I want to cut here after measuring 34 1/4 across, making sure it was straight on the frame. And then I subtracted the thickness of the plate that's going to go on the end, because that's going to be welded on the end, and you want to make sure that it is 34 1/4 complete. So I'm going to go ahead and get my plasma cutter out. We're going to try to hack whatever this off here and see if we can get that completely out of the way. I'm trying to decide if I want to use my angle grinder to cut this off so it's more straight and clean, because I definitely will be doing the plate with the angle grinder. But it would be nice to use the plasma cutter to cut that ear off. So I'm going to go ahead and set this camera down and get started. It's going to get a little noisy, so be prepared for that. But let's get to cutting. Before I start cutting, this is the torch for the plasma cutter. As I was showing previously, here is where the nozzle goes on, and then the cup right over it. Now make sure they're nice and tight. You got to pick the right cup and tip for that, but I already did that. And then here is the outer cup. I probably have the wrong names for this stuff, but I don't care. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the actual tool. Make sure it's nice and tight, make sure everything's good. Plasma cutter also has a ground clamp here, which I went ahead and just dropped a bolt, something like that. Screw that back on real quick here. It's a new plasma cutter, by the way, so please be patient with me. right? It's good enough. So I ground off a ground area here on the par so that it's nice and grounded. And what I'll do is I'll power it on after I hook the air compressor to it. Get some, might get my welding helmet or my sunglasses on, I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna go ahead and start torching this off, and I wanna make sure that my eyes are safe, so let me get started. Here on this bar, Crossmember, whatever. As you see, it cut like butter. I'm not sure if you see the camera, but it cut really nice. And this edge actually is decent. It's not the greatest, but it's decent. And yeah, this is gonna look pretty good. And keep cleaning this up. I'm going to take this plate that I've already pre-marked. And I'm going to cut it with the angle grinder. If you use the plasma cutter, you can see right here, the cut is very choppy. It's not the cleanest cut with the plasma cutter. Yes, it's fun to use, but it's not the cleanest. So we're going to use a nice straight angle grinder cut, clean this edge up, and yeah, we'll get to clamping and welding on the frame. Some safety glasses on. Learned my lesson once or twice. This is good enough. Set it aside. We'll go ahead and get started on cutting this plate. Again, nice table, right? Yeah. I'm pretty happy with that. It has room for adjustment. So I'm going to go ahead and hook up the clamp and get started welding. This, by the way, is a slip yoke. I'm just keeping things out of there. Alright. I have good penetration. I just want to go ahead and run a bead on the other side of this plate, and then, yeah, we'll mock it up and find out our pinion angle and where we want it, and drill some holes and bolt it in for good. Of course, I got to do the ears for the back of the tranny, so I don't have a mount yet. I want to go find a nice poly urethane mount, or maybe solid mount. I haven't decided yet, but for the meantime, let's just get to welding. I don't know what it is about welding, but after a nice long day at work, melting a couple pieces of metal together just tends to be therapeutic. Can't explain it. That's one strong weld. I've been racing cars most of my life, and if I wasn't able to weld strong, I would not chance it, because that's your life. And this is just a small example. I plan to add some gussets here for strength. Probably do some sleeves inside the frame. It's going to be a lot more strength added to this, but this here gets it started and mocked up. So you got to be careful with heat. You don't want it to bend and fold this plate here, but that's why I fully intend on getting this completed here, getting it set to where I want it with the ears, and then I'm going to bolt it through the sleeves in the frame, and then gusset it while it's bolted down, and then I'll go from there. But just remember, if you're building race cars and you are doing the welding, make sure that you do a strong weld. And don't forget to ground. Wrap it up for the day. Thank you for watching my show. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to comment. I'm okay with comments. I don't even care if they're negative. Feedback is a good thing in life. You got to be able to take it as well as leave it. So if you have any comments, feel free. I'm open to them. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy watching the show, and I'll see you next time.